Robert Cantner is Vice President of
Cantor?
Sorry. Robert Cantor is Vice President of Advertising for Tempest 976. His company does advertising for companies that operate these lines, Robert Cantor and Jim Nusis. Now, Jim, very distressing stories. I mean, you may get a giggle out of them, you know, once or twice, but this is pure pathos here. This is pathetic. What is your company doing? Let me ask you this.
Sure.
Do you take any responsibility for these abuses, for the pain and suffering and financial setback that Lester's mother is suffering right now?
Well, we're sorry to hear that Lester's mother and Lester have been into this situation. We deal with these things on an individual case basis when they come to our attention. We do not advocate the use of minors on these services. The services that my company represents are a variety of services, not only the GAB services that Lester was involved in, but also some of the information services, sports line, horoscope line, that type of thing.
We're dealing with these GAB lines,
Okay.
these gossipy, party line things now. What are you doing to stop kids like Lester from financially ruining their families?
We're doing a couple of different things. Our company has, since the first day that we've offered service, and we're in 4 markets right now, but since the first day that we offered service, we have the ability to block unauthorized use of those services. And we
But how do you do that? How can you tell a 15-year-old from a 25-year-old?
Well, we've set up on some of the, I would assume that he's talking about one of the young adult lines, and we've set up some policies, internal policies, that when a bill reaches $100 on one of those young adult lines, we cut that telephone number off, and they cannot use that service for up to a 4-week period. At that time, the service is turned back on. For the adult GAB lines, we have set, for our services only, a limit of $300 for the adult GAB lines. So they can't use the service once it goes, our services, once it goes over $100.
Leslie, what do you feel?
Well, as far as the adult lines, if they were truly adult lines, I wouldn't have complaints, and there wouldn't be all these complaints coming from parents of minor kids. But the commercials that I have seen are not orientated towards an adult. They're orientated towards kids and teenagers. I mean, they're rock and roll, and they got these guys all dressed up, you know, with punk hair, and they're saying, "Call me now. Why aren't you calling me right now?" And, you know, there were teenagers sitting there screaming and yelling all this stuff.
Now, Robert, you're doing the advertising, aren't you?
We're doing the advertising.
Aren't you targeting those kids?
We're targeting anyone that's adult enough and responsible enough to use the service and not abuse it like anything else you'd abuse. For example, if you had a cocaine addiction, you would seek help. Why are you still calling the lines if you're getting these enormous phone bills? I mean, you're more than adult enough to not be able to do that. You simply stop.
Well, first off, I'm not calling any longer. Okay, so I can't answer that.
Okay, then the problem is now solved then.
Wait. Too easy. Yeah. Lester, you answer.
I don't think I have a reason for it. It's just like you ask a person who's addicted to cocaine why they do it, because it's there and because they want to do it.
Don't you have any responsibility, Robert?
Well, yes, we do, and we take care of that responsibility. When we produce a television commercial, if you look at the end of the commercial, you'll see what's known as a disclaimer. The disclaimer tells you how much the call is going to cost you. It tells you that you need to be over 18 if that's the kind of line that it is.
Lester, did you ever see the disclaimer on the end of the ad?
No.
Even if you did, would it have changed your mind? Who did? No, you did. Did you stop calling?
No, I never.
Hold it.
Thank you.
You like that disclaimer, though?
It's all right, but I never called because my mother would kill me if I called that party line. I think your parents have to be strict in order to, they have to instill responsibilities into you. Because if your mother was always strict with you, you will not be calling no party line. My mother would kill me.
Does it run in specific areas, or is it state?
We run our advertising after 10 o'clock in the evening. I'm sorry, Jim.
People, are they going to parties in their immediate area, or are they staying?
It's specifically up to the adult, whoever happens to be on the line. I will say that party lines are providing New Yorkers here and around the country with an opportunity to meet other adults, to qualify those adults, to talk to them, to get to know them, to go out and have a cup of coffee, to go out to a movie, rather than meeting someone in a club. And it's a very viable entertainment source for these people.
I have a question. Lester, if your mother saw the first phone bill and realized that there was this trouble, I know my mother, I'd be dead. I mean, like, I can't understand how she let it keep going, how they didn't turn the phones off.
But
Like,
he explained what lengths they went through. Leslie was explaining that kids were sneaking phones into that. They were hooked.
They should have taken the phones totally out and...
It's not that easy. It's not that easy.
People that have had their phones disconnected or turned off have gone to their workplaces and called so extensively from work that they've lost their jobs. This has happened repeatedly.
We'll take a time out. We'll be right back. Okay. Party line horror stories is our focus. Your question.
But Tony, now you say you stopped. You don't do this anymore. Now,
not like I used to. I have.
You're like dabbling in it now.
I have.
What, about
called
5,000?
once or twice, you know. Maybe
check in with your old buddies?
Yeah.
Okay, now what made you do this? Did you seek help, or you just decided it was too much? It couldn't have been the money. I mean, if you have an addiction, which it really is.
Why I quit, or?
Right. Did you seek any help for this?
No.
It was
just
money, or?
It was from sheer. It was just that I couldn't call. I had no way of calling. See, by the time that it was over, I was living on the streets. I had been evicted. I had lost my jobs. I lost all my friends. I was living on the streets in 40-degree wind chill, below zero.
Chicago gets chilly.
This question is for Mr. Newsist.
Right.
Obviously, there is a lot of money being made here. Very lucrative business. How is this money being, what is being done with it? And how are your employees being paid?
Let me, wait, you want a job? Is it?
Got a great voice.
Let me modify the question, if I may. I'm going to take the moderator's privilege here. On a call, all right, let's say, what do you charge? 95 cents a minute?
Depends on the service.
Let's, argument's sake, say 95 cents a minute.
Sure.
How much of that do you pay to the telephone company?
Well, we have a contract with the telephone company to provide the billing for our services, and it varies by different telephone company, but it's a wide variety. It depends on how many, somewhere in the neighborhood of about $1 a bill, somewhere in that neighborhood.
What do you mean $1 a bill? What is that?
Well, $1 a bill. The telephone company bills us to render the billing for us. Those calls are itemized on your,
for example,
what about,
how much did your company clear on Lester's $6 grand?
Well, that's where we get into some of the differentiation between the different services. My company's Media4. I represent a service, a company that provides service under a 900-999 prefix, and only 900-999. Lester's referring to a different company, a local telephone company in his area that provides that service. Now, my service, the services that we provide are available to the general public. We do have the ability, as I stated earlier, to block those services, totally block them upon request. That is free of charge. We will do that for free.
I have a question for Laurel. She says these monitors, after someone abuses it and talks on it so long, they'll cut them off. Why would they cut them off? That's how they make money.
It's not necessarily a case of watching and seeing how long they've been on. We don't encourage people to stay on any longer than they can afford to. If people want to hang up, if you hear somebody say, well, I really got to get going, we don't say, oh, no, don't go, don't go. We don't do that.
How do you get paid? Let's go back to her question. Do you get paid on a commission basis?
No, no, you're an hourly. Straight hourly.
I wanted to ask Lester, you said earlier about the guy who shot you and whatnot. How hard is it to rid yourself of those people, of any connections that you've made?
Well, for him it was very easy because he moved out of state, but
had to.
It's not very easy at all. Once they have your phone number and once they know your address and all this and that,
these people will track you down, literally.
They know you.
I have a question for Leslie. You say your program is in Chicago and Nebraska. Have you considered taking it nationwide as far as an anonymous, like Alcoholics Anonymous, or?
Yes, I want mothers and fathers to talk to me, send me their bills, tell me about it, and I'll talk to their kids. I'll tell them what to do.
Now, Jim says that his company has the ability to cut off access to these party lines at the request of the parents, I assume, right?
Well, we not only do it at the request of the parents, but we do it, as I stated earlier, at our own request. We set those those limits, and we cut them off when those limits are reached.
Now, Leslie, do you feel that that is an adequate safeguard, or do you have something else?
That's just him. That's not all the multitude of numbers that are out there. I mean, he could be the one good guy of the talk lines. There are so many talk lines out there that are not responsible enough to even suggest something like that.
So what do we do about them? What do we do about them?
Well, I've saw, because of all the problems that I have with families and relatives, I searched all over the country and I found one manufacturer who makes a toll restrictor. And ever since I found them, I have been trying to sell it and find parents who need it.
How do people find out about the toll restrictor?
Through me, through distributors. And I know there's one very large...
Is there one address we can give at the end of the program?
Yeah.
Okay, we will. So parents, if you're concerned, get a pencil and a piece of paper and we'll give it to you.
When you block your line, you're not only blocking that party line, you're blocking your time and temperature that you might have been calling for 2 years to get that information. You're blocking your wake-up service. You're blocking that sports line that you might have been calling to get your sports scores.
No,
So that's...
There's other local numbers you can call that aren't 900 numbers to get that information.
Yes, I have a question for Lester. Did, at the time when you started to call the party line, did they offer blocking?
No, blocking wasn't available at that time until just recently they started it in Chicago.
We've even, I know people who have asked to have the blocking put on their phone. In fact, there was a mother and daughter who were, had a $3,000-some dollar phone bill, and the mother called the company begging them to block it off of her phone. And I know they had the service available because I know they had other people who had it, and they wouldn't do it because she paid her $3,000 phone bill. That's why they wouldn't do it.
I just have a question for Tony or Lester. Did any relationships ever surface from these $1,000 phone calls? I mean, was it worth it?
A few bad ones.
Yeah,
but,
right.
Well, not for me, though. Now, I did have one very good relationship.
You met someone and then you went and moved in with them on the street.
There are a lot of people
We'll be
who
right
get a
back.
lot out of it.
I actually have two questions. One is for Lester. After getting shot at, weren't you afraid to call back again?
well, that was a one-time experience that happened.
Weren't you afraid something would happen, again, so you could get mixed up again and something could happen to you?
I guess I'll take that chance, though.
Okay. And my other question is, oh, go ahead, sorry.
It's a common thing to get threats from people on the line, life threats.
All right, my other question is, you're saying these kids are calling. How old are these kids that are calling?
For the mothers that I've got, their ages are from 10 to 18.
The thing is, there are so many, lines that I work on, we don't allow children on a line. It's the monitor's discretion. If they get somebody on the line who says, we say, how old are you? 27? It's like, really, what year were you born? Even if they've got the answer right and the monitor thinks that they're young, they'll say, I'm sorry, I think you're too young to call this line. You'll have to hang up.
And then they tell them to call the other line, the one that's for
No,
under
we
16.
never recommend another line.
Okay.
Is there a line for under 16?
Yeah, there is.
In Chicago, there is.
Yeah, at least
Media Force Services have got, like I said, we have
Robert,
some
do
young
you advertise
lines.
any lines for under 16s?
Under 16?
Come on, fess up.
Sure. Tempest Advertising will do everything possible to make sure that no one is fooled.
That wasn't the question.
I just want to make this statement.
That wasn't the question. You can make the
Within
statement
the
and answer the question
confines
first.
of the four walls of any household, the mother should be able to tell their child what to do if there's a problem. I don't think it's the problem of the information provider.
And now we'll go back to the question.
Okay,
Under 16
which was,
usually doesn't work.
do you advertise for under 16 lines?
Yes.
I have a question for Jim. Jim, you had mentioned that your company sets a threshold of $300 for adult calling.
That's
but
correct.
isn't that an awful lot of money to expect someone to pay a bill? And the second part of that question is your company opposed to blocking, which FCC is trying to regulate right now? Is your company opposed to doing that?
Well, when we set the limit, we set it at $300 per month, and we have not had any complaints as to the level of that and cutting that off.
Can this 300 be compounded?
The second part of the question is, what's our policy on blocking? Media Force Services, since day one, and we started up in Chicago, since the first day we had service available, we have been able to block our services from every telephone in the Chicago area.
I gotta ask
we do
this
the same in New York.
I'm bugged
we do
about
the same
something. Hold
wherever
it,
we're
I'm
at.
bugged about something. Now, Robert, you advertise for these under 16-year-old lines. I mean, do you ever get a twinge of conscience about that? I mean, you ever get bothered about that?
I'm in advertising. I'm not here to sell a conscience. I'm here to sell and deliver a product to anyone responsible enough to respond and
All
use
those
it.
responsible 14-year-olds.
I was very responsible under 16.
Tony.
And my parents...
I agree with him because I wish I was the one who would have thought of his idea so that I could have made the money that they're making right now.
Wait a minute.
Free enterprise. All right.
Yeah. Wait a minute. Geraldo,
How many people's lives have been devastated because of this, though?
How many people have gotten jobs from these lines?
Wait.
We have gotten people jobs on
I
our
like
lines.
entrepreneurs. I want people to start business in this country. But when you start taking advantage of the vulnerable teenagers who got weak minds, who don't know what they're doing, you're wrong. You're taking advantage of teenagers. Teenagers aren't adults. They're not old enough to make decisions like that.
Tony, you said that you weren't such a lonely person before you started this. If you can become so attached to these people you don't even know, how do you become so detached to the people that you do know in everyday life?
It was because the people that I knew in everyday life were set in their lives. They had what they needed. They could carry on their lives. The people that I met off these lines, although some of them were regular workers, some of them did have their lives together, each one of them, not each one, but some of them seemed to need somebody, and I felt as though I could help provide
I think the question is, how are you so bad in your real life and so good in your phone relationships? I mean, how...
Well, I never said I was bad in my real life, though. You know,
Question for Laurel. As a monitor, you hear a lot of people, a lot of conversations. Are they generally good, bad? What do you think?
As a rule, they're good. People have gotten, like I said, people have gotten jobs. We've gotten contractors
The spokesman
jobs.
for the company says that some people are getting married.
We have
soon.
people, we have people who have men on the line
Also,
who
a
are
girl
getting
had a
married.
birthday and is went on a hot air balloon ride.
Last Sunday, somebody got shot 5 times in the back of the head from meeting somebody.
Ooh,
online.
take a break.
Yeah, that could happen walking down the street.
Before we're out of time, I want to give you this address we promised. Here it is. It's Stop Phone Abuse, P.O. Box 5717, Lincoln, Nebraska, 68505. That's Leslie Shower's address there if you want to get involved in that. I want to quickly give I've been thinking about this, and the phones are not cocaine, and with all due respect to you guys, I know you're a wig dad, and parental responsibility really does count a lot here. And, but regulation is also important. Jim, I'm going to give you 10 seconds for a closing statement.
Just want to point out the information providers that Media Force supports do not look for the minors to use these services. We do not look for that. We will block the services if it is requested. We do have the credit limit blocking.
Leslie.
I want to say to the parents out there who've got the bills, your kids are not doing this because they hate you. They love you, and they don't want to charge all these hundreds and thousands of dollars on you. They have got a problem. They got a problem, and they need help.
Speak up and stand with them. Stand with your kids.
Okay, I want to thank you all. Party line phones, horror stories and other stories has been our focus. Thank you very much.